Does cold and snow mean I'm done composting now until spring? I'm Prairie Plant Girl, and I live in Saskatchewan, Canada, Zone 3B. It gets cold here, very cold, but I continue to compost all winter long. So come with me, and I'm about to get my composter ready to compost in winter. I'll show you how. Today I need to get this compost bin emptied. I do hot composting throughout the spring, summer season, and when it gets into fall, I usually, I don't know, maybe lost interest. It usually kind of falls behind, and this year for sure it did. So I still have quite a bit of compost in here, but it's not really finished compost. In fact, there's probably some things that haven't really decomposed at all because it's been so cold the last few weeks here. But I need to get this emptied out because all winter I will fill it. I've now collected up my fall leaves, and I have a bin here full of leaves. And throughout the winter, as I put a layer of scraps from the kitchen in here, I'll put a layer of leaves on top and keep layering it so that as soon as the weather starts to warm up and this is no longer a giant frozen mass, it heats up really quickly. And that's actually one of my best hot compost batches that I usually get, is that first spring batch. But in order to get that to happen, I need to get this empty because there's some compost in it, some probably not really composted things in it, and I just need to get it emptied out so that I can start fresh. So I'm going to take up my thermometer. It's a whopping 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius in there, which is actually, it's only 0 out here right now, which I think is 32 Fahrenheit. So it actually is warmer in there still, but it's not really doing anything. It's just sitting there. So let's get it emptied. Oh, I was going to stick this in one of my raised beds, but they're frozen on top. Oh, there's a spot that's still warm. Okay, that's out of the way, safe. It's 10 degrees in the compost bin. I just stuck that in the ground and it just went right down to nothing. So you can see I have some scraps that I've just put the last little while in this other bin waiting. So I knew I had this job. So this is from my last grass cutting, which was actually 2 weeks ago, and then we had that snowstorm. So you can see it's done nothing. And then as I dig down, like there's some not too badly composted soil and whatnot in here. Some of that is actually potting mix. I can see from dumping out some things, but some of it's actual compost. And then I have some like newspaper and things in here still. So it's not perfect. And what I'll do, you may have noticed around my yard, I have bags and bags of what looks like I have like potting soil sitting around my yard. It's not. It's when I pulled out compost, I'll sort it out. And this year I've been trying to take kind of the rough sortings, and some of them I've been putting in bags, or if I have extra compost that I just don't need at the time, I've been just putting it in bags and just putting it off to the side for next year. So I'm out of the really big bags. I'm gonna have to use these smaller ones, but at least it's somewhere to put it, because my garden beds, most of them are pretty full right now, but I can use this in my pots or to just mulch over top of my planting beds and things come next year. So I think for the most part I'm gonna scoop this out into a bucket, and I think it'll be easier to dump it into the bags after, because especially with these smaller bags, there's not much of an opening to trying to get my shovel in. But that's my plan, is to just scoop this out and fill up the bags. So even though it's not perfect, it'll heat up in the sunshine and probably break down a little bit more in the spring. But for now, it'll be fine. So I brought out my fork. I have a smaller shovel. It'll probably be good for maybe helping get into the tight corners. And then I have this other shovel, which should be good for scooping it out. And then of course a bucket to put it in. I'll just put my bucket down here and start filling her up. If you get the bag to stay open in the bucket, the bucket might help it stand up. Maybe I could scoop right into it. My hands are freezing already. something else I need for this job that I forgot to mention is little pins. So I take, this is just bent wire that I'd made for a landscape pin. The rest that I have here are just really tiny little landscape pins. And I just use them to close up the bags. Hopefully I didn't fill this one too full. I just kind of fold it over. Might need to take some out of here, we'll see. Just poke the pin through. And that's just hopefully keeping mice, birds, the dog, anyone who might think it's interesting from digging around in there. And that usually keeps them closed up for me. Let's see with these smaller bags. It's one bag done and less than a quarter out of the bin, I think. So it worked pretty good that last one. I just rolled it down and set it in my bucket, and then I was able to fill it. So we'll keep trying to do that. Putting the bag in the bucket, and anything that falls past the bag should be caught in there. Get it in the next bucket. So I don't fill this one quite as full. Hopefully I can just use one pin to close it up. So the benefit of using a bag like a potting soil bag or a triple mix bag is, I don't know how well you can see, but there's little holes in the bags. There's always a little bit of breathing room in these bags, you know, for some air exchange. Whereas if you use like a garbage bag, it would, there'd be no holes. You'd have to poke some holes in, I think, because in the winter it's fine, but if I'm gonna leave these here, when the weather starts to warm up, they'll start to, I assume, decompose in here, and you get a really grody, wet, sloppy, stinky mess in here. Whereas I think like this, with the holes and a little bit of air exchange, it should help to be not quite as bad, as if all the moisture could just would be stuck inside. So okay, so that's bag number 4. It looks like I get one more, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do to get this started. Last one. Okay, so I got 6 of those little bags out of here, and there's still a little bit in the bottom, but not much. It's kind of interesting to see there's some frost along the side here. Actually, between these 2 buckets is where the frost line is showing on the bin, where the sun's shining, and even over here it doesn't look as frosty. Clipped up anything I dropped on the ground here. Dump it back in. I'll dump in these scraps I've been collecting. So those parsnip tops from when I harvested the parsnips the other day. So that's just frozen in the bottom. So just gonna spread this out. Now I can see a few ladybugs in here, but I think, being that it's not gonna really heat up, it's not really gonna heat up right now. So I'm thinking that the ladybugs are probably fine to have their little nap in here for the winter, and there's holes in the sides, so when it starts to heat up in the spring, I'm sure they can find their way out. So like I said, this is full of leaves, but I have bags of leaves that I have collected, and actually my neighbors, because I've been so busy with my greenhouse, My neighbors have been nice enough to throw some of their bagged leaves over the fence for me, and my parents collected like 14 bags of leaves off their farm lawn, so I have lots of bagged leaves. So I'm gonna go grab a bag of leaves and put some of that in here just as a small layer over what I just put in, and then after that just be collecting through the winter. Every time I have kitchen scraps, I'll just put them in, and when I get a layer about this deep, I'll just get a few more leaves, put on top, and I'll just keep layering it like that all winter. So my layer of leaves is about twice the depth of the scraps I put in there. The scraps just barely cover the bottom. The leaves are thicker than that. Here, and I'm just kind of going through because these are just raked up leaves, so I'm kind of crushing them a bit to kind of break them down a little. You don't have to, but they just will break down faster. It won't actually heat up. It won't really do a whole lot through the winter unless we wind up with some really warm weather in the winter. Sometimes then it'll start to kind of heat a bit. But what it will do is all those scraps and little bits like the parsnips leaves and that, they're going to break down from the freezing, and then when they thaw in the spring, and they will freeze and thaw a little bit over the winter as the sun shines on here. Like I said, once in a while we'll get a little bit of, around freezing temperatures, and with the sunshine on here that can warm it up a bit. And that'll thaw them a little bit, and it just breaks down the cell walls on all those bits of material in that. And then once it actually starts to really truly thaw out and heat up in here in the spring, which we can still have lots of snow on the ground, it can still be actually quite cold at night, but it'll be heating up enough in here that I'll be able to get a hot compost batch going. So that's what I do to prepare my compost bin for the winter. Other years I've done trench composting, or like I said, just spread the compost out over top of my garden beds. So if you want to see videos about trench composting or some other composting videos, I'll put some links for you. And I'll give you a link also to getting it going in the spring. One last preparing for winter compost tip is I don't latch my lid in the winter. These bins are generally made out of plastic, and if you get a lot of water built up, snow gets in there, it melts when the sun shines on it, it can turn into ice, freeze these up, and they get stuck, and you end up breaking your bin or your latches or not able to get into it at all. If you live somewhere where the lid is likely to blow off in the winter, just put a big rock or a brick or something on it, and I would think that would be a lot better than risking wrecking your lid. And I take my thermometer inside so it doesn't get wrecked from the extreme colds here. I mean, we get down to like minus 35, sometimes minus 40 here. So things like these compost thermometers can't handle that. So just something to think about when you're preparing things and getting them ready for the winter. So can you still compost in a cold Canadian prairie winter? You bet you can. It's not the same as summer composting, but you're still going to get all that goodness out of your food scraps if you collect them all winter and have them ready for a good batch of compost come spring. I hope you found this helpful, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.